Hi Bestie, how's life? Did you know about the name of the song in the opening session? Can you guess it? I think you're gonna love that song because I love that song too. Related to the song, we are gonna learn about narrative text.
So, what is narrative text?
Narrative text is an imaginative text that tells story chronologically. That means the story is told according to the order of time. A narrative text is fictional. Do you know what is fictional? It is something that does not happen in your real life. For example, the story of Cinderella with her fairy godmother. Do you think you can find a fairy godmother around you? Of course not. Why? Because fairy godmother just a fiction character.
So, what's the point of learning the story?
Well, learning narrative text definitely has a purpose. First, we can be entertained of the imaginative story. Also, we can have lesson learned about the consequences of doing good or doing bad.
Well guys, as interesting as something amusing, narrative text can be looked like sandwiches. It has layers to compose it. To form narrative text, we need 4 layers. They are, firstly, orientation. This part is introduction, where all the characters and settings of time and place involved in the story are informed. Secondly, complication. In this part, the conflict begins to arise. Because it happens chronologically, the plot is normally started from problem, climax, anticlimax, and ended with solution. Thirdly, resolution. In this section, it indicates an end where solution is offered and the lesson learned is concluded. This also tells whether the story is closed happily or sadly. The last one is reorientation. This part is optional. Commonly, the antagonist will be punished and the protagonist will be rewarded to reveal the consequences of their deeds. This clearly portrays the lesson to mirror in real life.
Does it mean all stories belongs to narrative text?
Of course not. Narrative text has its own characteristic. They are: first, usually narrative text tells about past stories. The second one, narrative text is a sequential text that put in order from one paragraph to another. And the last one, no other text is purposed to entertain except narrative text.
Well, so now let's come to the language features of narrative text. First, we will see that narrative text usually uses simple past tense. Still remember what simple past tense is? This tense is used to tell things happened in the past. Because narrative text tells about past stories, hence we use simple past. The second is action verb. Action verbs is kind of verbs to express an action or a visible activity. Take a look at this sentence. The water gurgled all the way down the sink. The action verb here is gargle. Another examples of action verb are send, kill, hit, etc. Third is saying and thinking verb. Saying verb expresses speaking activity, for example, tell, say, etc. While thinking verb, on the other hand, indicates an expression of informing the character's thought.
4. Conjunction of time. Since narrative text is chronologically in order, definitely we use conjunction of time such as before, after, as soon as, until, till. 5. Adjective. Adjective gives an explanation to a noun. In narrative text, it describes the characters. For the examples, Aladdin is a poor man, and the second one, Cinderella is a beautiful girl. Both poor and beautiful are adjectives to describing the noun. Last but not least, noun. Noun could be the character of the story. For the example are Queen Elizabeth, King William, the Queen, the King, table, horse, and etc.
Let's talk about the types of narrative text. There are many types of narrative text. What are they? Okay, number 1, fairy tale. Fairy tale is a genre fantasy. You find the example like Snow White, Cinderella, Thumbelina, and Timon Mas. Number 2, folktale or folklore. This is similar with fairy tale. The difference is this is told generation to generation that belief happen in the certain site. For example, Maling Kundang and Sangkuriang. Number 3, legend. We can assume legend as a blend of fairy tale and folk tale. It tells about the origin of a certain place. For example, the legend of Banyuwangi, the story of Lake Toba, and the legend of Surabaya. Number 4, myth. Well, another type of narrative text is myth. Although it is similar with folktale, myth is encountered still today. The examples are Ajisaka and Dewa Jengker. Science fiction. Science fiction is commonly abbreviated sci-fi. This highlights the story of scientific fiction. The sci-fi connect unreal concept with science and sophisticated technology to imply future dream. Number 6 is romance. Romance or love story contains a fight for true love of the main actors. The popular one is Romeo and Juliet. Number 7 is horror stories. Horror stories also belong to narrative text. This might be frightening because it involves ghosts and supernatural power. The last one, or number 8, is fable. Have you ever heard the story stated by animal? Yes, this is a kind of narrative text named fable. This text is aimed for children, usually as lullaby. For example, The Ant and the Dove.
So, you already know what is a narrative text. Now, let's read together a story, The Great Fortune Teller. And after that, we will answer some questions related to the story. The Great Fortune Teller. Once upon a time, there lived two friends named Tukebi and Tori. Tukebi means toad and Tori means stone in Korean. One day, Tukebi felt tired of being poor. Tori, I want to change my life and live comfortably. What should I do? I can't think any of good ideas. The smart Tori then said confidently, I know what you have to do, Tukebi. I am sure we can change our condition later. At first, Tukebi was confused, but later he agreed and followed Tori's idea. Tori sneaked into the king's palace that night. He planned to steal the royal seal and buried it under the chestnut tree in the king's palace garden. The next morning, the palace became chaotic. Everybody heard the news that royal seal was stolen and the king was very mad. He ordered everybody to search for it, but no one could find it. Several days later, Tukebi came into the palace and faced the king. He said calmly, Dear king, the chestnut tree has the royal seal under it. Tukebi knew where the seal was because Tori told him so. The king didn't know about and went straight to the chestnut tree in the palace garden. His people started digging and found a seal. The king felt very happy and rewarded Tukebi with a lot of money. However, the king then asked Tukebi another question. Some of the queen's precious jewelry was stolen and the king wanted to know where they were. Tukebi got confused. It happened out of the plan. He regretted his decision to follow Tori's idea. He walked back and forth in the courtyard. "What should I do?" he whispered to himself. Suddenly, someone appeared in the dark fearfully. It was a courtmate who looked so pale. "I know that you know everything, Mr. Tukebi," she said. Tukebi was confused. "What do you mean, lady?" The maid then confessed. "I was the one who stole the jewelry. I buried it under the wooden floor at the corner of the building." Because of that, now he knew where the jewels were. He felt happy and told the king in the next morning. The king and queen were happy. Since then, Tukebi became famous. The emperor of China wished to meet him and invited him right after. The king tasked him. He pointed a stone on the top of a small mound of earth. "Mr. Tukebi, what is hidden inside the mound?" Tukebi got shocked. How would he know what was under the heap of soil? At this point, he felt surprised and angry. He shouted, "Tukebi is dying because of you, Tori!" The king and his people then cheered loudly. The king had actually buried a toad under the stone. The emperor admired Tukebi more and gave him a lot of money. Although he could change his fate and became very famous, Tukebi decided to stop doing it. He didn't want to cheat people anymore.
Okay guys, now let me check that you have followed the lesson today. Well, what kind of text that we have learned? Yeah, great, it is narrative. Now, let's take a note the important point. Number one, narrative is an imaginative text that tells the story chronologically. Number two, the purpose are to entertain the reader and give moral lesson. The third, the generic structure are orientation, complication, resolution, and reorientation. The language feature are simple past tense, action verb, saying and thanking verb, conjunction of time, adjective, and noun. The type of narrative text are fairy tale, folk tale, fable, legend, myth, science fiction, horror stories, and romance. Okay, I hope this video will help you to get a better understanding about narrative text. Have a wonderful day and keep exploring the material that we have discussed. See you!